Thank you, thank you. Remember, I once attended the lecture of an Israeli speaker, and after the introduction, he said that the part that he likes most in his lectures are the introduction. So thank you. Boker Tov, good morning. Mayor, thank you very much for having us. You know, when I assumed my responsibilities in Canberra, I was told that the best thing about Canberra is getting out of Canberra. I was looking forward for the sunny Gold Coast. I'm still here and very hopeful. I would like also to thank the Brigitte and the band for making sure that, we're alive, we are here, singing. Looking forward to hear them later. I would like to also welcome Member of Knesset Ohad Tal, a Member of Knesset Tatiana, Robert, and Mr. Wexler. And I would like also to welcome the pastors, the rabbis, representative from the community, my friends from the other Christian organization. Some are already here. We have John here, we have Barry, we have Matthew, we have Ian sitting here. I'm looking forward for our next adventure this week. Also to welcome Orit from the Jewish Agency. Always good to see you around. And of course, my dear friend, Dr. Ron Weiser. Distinguished guests, dear all, I would like to start by asking you to also add to your prayer and thoughts today a special prayer for the Israeli soldiers and other security services that are engaged right now in excessive military activity in the city of Jenin. Jenin that turns into a safe haven to terrorist organizations such as the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. Both organizations are listed here in Australia and recognized as terror organization. We will not let the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad and the Iranian fractions to establish themselves in Jenin, and we will continue with the operation as long as it requires, until we will accomplish all our military objectives. And when we are active there, we are doing so very slowly, very carefully, in order to minimize to a zero the bystanders and civilian casualties. I thought that as today is all about Jerusalem, and as an Israeli, I was given 5 minutes. And you should know a little bit about the Israelis. To give 5 minutes for an Israeli, it's mission impossible. And as you can tell, I'm not Tom Cruise, so... So let me, instead of delivering a speech, share with you my personal and my first memory of Jerusalem, our capital. Some of you have heard, so I apologize, but many of you didn't. It takes me back 60 years, really, 60 years, to the year 1963. I was 5 years old, living in the city of Rishon LeZion. Today is one of the largest cities in Israel. And my father, my late father, was a military officer. He fought all his wars, all Israel major wars, including the War of Independence, 56, 67, 73, retired as a general in 1987. But in 1963, he was a young major, and he had 2 children, Dorit, my sister, and myself. And we didn't see much of him, because he was rarely at home. He was always with his soldiers and colleagues somewhere in the field. But when he was at home, it was a big celebration. It was a big celebration because it was there for us. It was not about the goodies that it brought. It was about the values that he gave us. It was all about the love for Israel. It was all about the love to people. And one day he came home and we were very happy and very excited. He took me and my sister and told us, tomorrow I'm going to take you to the north. And we were excited because we were never in the north. Remember, 1963. And we woke up early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and my dad was trying to turn on his car. It was an old military car. The make was Citroën, and the car was named Deshvo. If you will check in Google, in the history books, you'll find that once upon a time there was such a car. But unfortunately, the car did not cooperate with him, and he was unable to turn on the car. Only after an hour, he successfully turned on the car, the engine. He looked at us, smiled, and he had a big mustache and said, kids, we're not going to the north, but we will go to Jerusalem. So he took us to Jerusalem, and it was the first time for me to visit our capital, the holy city of Jerusalem. But in 1963, Jerusalem was still divided. And we were standing not too far from the Russian hospital. We were standing behind a barbed wire. We could see the soldiers, the Jordanian soldiers, patrolling. We saw the walls from far. And that was the first time that I learned that my grandmother, from my mother's side, Rachel, was born in Jerusalem. Her father was a well-known rabbi, Rabbi Maliach, who immigrated from Yemen in the end of the 19th century, and they settled in Silwan in Jerusalem. Today there is a neighborhood known as the Yemenite neighborhood in Silwan. There is still a synagogue, which I was blessed to visit a few days before I flew from Tel Aviv to Canberra for the first time. And I remember the voice, something was different in my father's voice. He was very emotional. And he was sharing with me the story of the War of Independence, during which we had to evacuate the Jewish quarter. And I could tell that he's not as any other day. He was very emotional. And then in 1967, he was one of the commanders in the Southern Front, under the Major General Gavish. And a few weeks after the war ended, he took us again to Jerusalem. And that was the first time for me to stand in front of the Western Wall. It was a very narrow street. And as a child, I was 9 years old, I remember how blessed I felt standing there. Not just as a Jew, but as someone whose family was brought up in our holy city. And then years later, I was privileged to and honored to join the paratroopers unit, the same unit that liberated the city of Jerusalem, Brigade 55. And I met the people. And there is a famous photo presenting 3 Israeli soldiers looking up. The one in the middle is a very good friend. He's a medical doctor from my hometown, Dr. Ifat. Unfortunately, he lost all his hair, but in the photo he looks young, blonde, and with lots of hair. And years later, I was honored to lead the same paratroopers unit as a battalion commander during the 1982 war, the first war in Lebanon. Now, the reason why I'm sharing it with you is mainly to make sure that there won't be any misunderstanding. Because in recent months, since I assumed my responsibilities, I heard different views about the status of Jerusalem. Some people suggested that even West Jerusalem is not the capital of the state of Israel. So let me make sure that there is no misunderstanding. The paratroopers, my colleagues and comrades, liberated Jerusalem. They didn't occupy Jerusalem, nor conquer. Jerusalem was never a capital of any other nation than the Jewish nation. It's important to remember. And last but not least, I don't need anyone to, tell me where my capital is. I really don't need anyone. Jerusalem was, is, and forever will remain the eternal united capital of the State of Israel. Thank you.